All right, everyone, welcome back to, this should be episode 7, I believe. I'm going to pick back up on the swinging tray or basket or whatever you want to call it, where I'll store pins and V-blocks and things like that. Because the rest of it's finished up, other than the handle on the winch crank, that's all that's left other than paint. So in this episode, we should easily be able to finish that swinging basket, and we may get to the complete project minus paint. So anyway. Okay, so for that basket that's going to hold pins and push pins and V-blocks and that kind of stuff, I decided on about a 12-inch round circle. In essence, if you envision the top of a 5-gallon bucket is about 12 inches, so that basket would sit there, actually sit here, and then it would fold around tucked inside. So that won't stick out too far. So I've got a piece of inch, and it looks like 1.25 by, I think, 16th. Might be 332. Actually, it's by 8. I don't have a set of slip rolls. I wish I did. It would be really nice for rolling rings like this. So I'm going to kind of try to form it just by doing little bends at a time. And then I'll just kind of hold it up to the bucket to see how close to round it is. So I just need you can do it in a vise. The problem with the vise is the throat is really shallow. So the overhang here on my table saw with this works really well. And this is thin enough that it bends really easily. So it's just a matter of bend a little, move it down, bend a little, just like that until I slowly start forming a circle. And if it's not tight enough, then I just go back and kind of bend in between the spots I bent the first time. So pretty, not bad for a start. Getting pretty close. These last little ends, there's not enough leverage to get those, so I'll take those over to the vise, open the jaws up, spread the jaws this way, and then hit in the middle of the ball peen hammer, and that'll tip those tips in. All right, so that gets me ends come together. I'll tack those together and then kind of line it up on the bucket and tweak anything that needs a little bit of tweaking, but it really isn't that critical. Doesn't have to be a round, exactly perfectly round circle, just a tray. Okay, and cool this off and grind that down, and then we'll attach the bottom. Okie doke. Let's go over here and see how close it fits on a bucket. Tells us how round it is. Pretty round. We're just freehanding it. Good enough for what this is going to be. So again, that'll sit over here and it'll swing around. There could be a fair amount of weight on it though, so I think I'll probably use square tubing as the arm. Actually, maybe not. The arm's only about, yeah, I probably will. Because it's about 4 inches is what the arm needs to be to come over to this pivot and then still swing around. So we'll see. I think I'll use square tubing, and then we'll just see how stiff it is, and if I needed to add a gusset, I could later on. So this is 1.25 inches. Let's see what I got in the way. I've been kind of depleting, as I mentioned in one of the videos, the steel supplier I was using that was where you could go in and either buy full sticks, 10-footers, they had rims, all that kind of stuff. Since they kind of shut that operation down, I've been robbing kind of my supply, and I'm getting a little low on some stuff. So unfortunately, I'm probably just going to have to bite the bullet and buy some 20-foot sticks of just general different sizes of tubing and angle and flat bar, but it is what it is. Well, I don't have an 1.25 inches in the rack, so what I'm going to do, and it'll actually make it a little stronger. I've got some 1.5 inches, so I'll take this 1.5 inches that already had a notch out of it, and basically the same thing. I'll notch down 1.25 inches. That'll leave 1/4 inch left. That'll fit in essence underneath the ring, go to the far side. Still leave me enough for the 4-inch leg over here. It'll give a little bit more support to this. And so anyway, that's what I'll get this notched out, and you'll see what I mean here in just a second. All right, that's what it's supposed to look like. So now that would fit like that, so it's flush with the top, and you get a little bit of support from the bottom. So I'll just clean that up. There's a little bit of radius I need to put on this, and then I will cut the rest of the leg to match. Just got to do a little bit of final fitting here with another grinder, and then I'll show you the final fit. Alright, so there's the final fit up. Fits against that shoulder. Gives you just that extra little bit of material, not that it's going to make a huge difference. So I'll cut it to that 4 inches it needs to be for that little leg. And I'll probably cut that long, I think. And the pin that needs to go on there, this pin that's going to go in that bushing, instead of sticking that on or gluing that on or welding that on the bottom, I'll probably drill a hole all the way through, and that way I can plug the pin or plug weld the pin on the top, and that'll give it a little bit more stability. Okay, so that's what I was talking about. Drill the hole all the way through, so then I can, instead of having to have a bunch of weld bead here on the bottom that'll get in the way, I'll weld it on the inside of the tube and then also on the top. Makes it plenty strong. So I'm pretty close to being able to tack this guy on. This guy here. I want to come this way as far as I can to the center, because that will give me more room to swing it out in the middle, but I also don't want to snooker myself and to make it where I can't get to those bolts if I have to take them out. So I'm probably going to put it Put it right about there. And I'm going to need it, of course, to be plumb in both directions, because otherwise, if it was leaning one way or the other, then that tray is going to want to swing around and find the low spot. So, and to give it a little extra support, I got a little foot here that I'll put on the bottom, and that way, because it'd have a tendency to try to twist this off of here in this axis. So I'll put this little foot on the bottom, and that will keep that from happening. So let me kind of get away, set up here to clamp it, and I'll bring you back. Okay, so I've got the foot clamped onto it. I'm going to hold the whole assembly up, and then I'm going to put a tack right here on this edge, and I'm hoping, if anything, that would be leaning out, because then I can use that weld tack as a hinge and bend it this direction to straighten it up. If I have to cut it loose, so be it. So let's see what happens here. So I think what I'll do, now that I've got that tacked on there, is I'll just grab the digital level. And check to see if the zero it on the main frames, that way it will be parallel with that. And then zero it on this axis, and then zero it on this axis. And check and see how close I am. Just from eyeballing, it looks like I do have to tip it the direction I wanted to, which is good. So I'll bring it around so you can kind of see what I mean here. I could either leave it on that reading that's there, which is 89.7, and just duplicate that, see if it reads the same thing, but it's easier just to zero it. Now it's 0. And then when I put it on here, so we're like, because there's a little play in this, we're at 1.7 degrees that way. And if I push it that way, a half a degree that way. So we are leaning out just a little bit, like I said. So I'm going to try ever so gently to tweak it without breaking the weld loose. So now we're at 1.3 that way, 1.35 that way. So that's the way I could do it. Other than this is a little bit more solid material, and then I don't have to take into account the wobble in the pen. So 0 and 0. That's a 0 there, and 0 there. So that's about as close. That's about as close as I'm going to get it. And now, of course, if I tried to weld this, it would definitely pull. So that's kind of where this foot will come in handy. I can put the foot in there, and I'll tack the foot to this frame first, and then come in and do a little tack there. Kind of just play around tacking in different spots to try to get it to where there's no chance of it, or very little chance of it moving when I put a little bit heavier bead on it. And again, this is just below the level of the table. That way, if I would have to have something big out here, I can remove the tray, and it won't bother at all. So this through here. And the principle behind that is that we'll swing around. I'm going to leave it up about maybe a good half of an inch. That'll account for that little bit of droop that's there, the play in the pin, and make a mark on that and make sure, because it might flex down some. I think I'll give it even a little bit more. It doesn't hurt to have some extra. Make a mark and swing that around and see what this is going to kind of clear. Just touches there. So, but this has gotten a little bit of a bow in it from when I cut it. I got to straighten it, so I'm going to still give it another little bit. So now that swings around. And we'll cool it off and bend this bottom up to where it needs to be. Alrighty. Bring it around, store your stuff over there, and so it doesn't burn up extra space in the shop. And bring it around here. It's got a little bit of a twist to it because of this piece, but I can put a bar in there. I probably can even do it by hand. I'll get that twisted back around. It clears as is. But with a little bit of weight in it, stays where you put it. Alrighty, well I gotta get a piece of expanded metal cut out to match that hole, and I'll get that done. And then basically, I got to deburr a bunch of stuff. I tried to deburr most everything as I did it, but there's the cross tables hadn't been done yet, so deburr everything, get some paint on it. And then I'll lace the straps through. The pump should be here any day. I ordered it maybe a week or so ago. So the only thing I might hold off before I paint is I haven't decided the hose routing to go up to the cylinder. I might get a rigid solid steel line made up to go from basically on this other side, the fitting's right about here, to come through and maybe out the back side with a bulkhead fitting, and then the hose would just go down to the pump versus trying to lace the hose in here, because I got to remember the strap's got to come across here. That's the other thing I could do is put the rollers, but I mentioned rollers, but I haven't decided. I could put actual rollers that would roll, but it's not like this is high speed. It's not going to be getting used very often, and so I think just some 1/2 inch cold rolled round, put in there, the strap will slide over that just fine. Okay, so I brought in a piece of expanded metal. I thought I had some smaller mesh stuff, but I didn't, but this'll work. So basically it's just a matter of painting down here. It's just a matter of putting the ring down on the expanded metal, kind of putting it where I want. As far as the pattern would go, not that that's critical, and tracing that ring. So I really want to get this project finished up for you guys in the remainder of this episode, and then just one more episode for the painting and that stuff. So I'm going to do a lot of fast forwarding here on some of these steps. Basically, you guys have seen this same type of stuff. I'm just going to cut out the expanded metal. I'm going to get it welded into the framework. So really I don't need to show you a lot of that or narrate it. So just sit tight here and we'll fast forward to this, and then I will show you a little bit of the hand crank, and then hopefully that'll get me close enough to being able to finish this in just one more episode. Alrighty, that didn't take too long. Go on the warm side, put that up there. And so now, got a little tool tray. Hold it over there, roll it back in. So I'll do a little bit of deburring on that, and then bring it back, and we will start on the handle. Once that's done, then all I got left is those couple rollers or wear bars up here at the top, and it is ready for painting. I think I might sandblast it first, but we'll see. So hang out here and I'll be right back. Okay, so I decided what I'm going to do on the handle. I mentioned earlier I was going to just do a piece of 1/2 inch and bend 2 dog legs in it, which would work. But I think what I'm going to do instead, because I can make it a little more compact or fit tighter, is I'll come out off of this just a little bit, maybe 1/4 of an inch past this straight, and then I'll use a piece of 1/2 inch square tube to drop straight down, and then put another round piece here on the bottom that your hand goes on, and that gives it a little bit more tighter fit. So let me get this piece of cold rolled, or this round bar cut and faced off, and then I'll show you how we'll assemble it. Okay, so I cut the pieces to length, face them off so I can clamp them nice and square. On the one that's the handle, put a little bit of a round over on the end, just so you don't catch a sharp edge. So I'm going to clamp this extension piece onto this and this at the same time. So I'll pull the tooth wheel off, and that'll let me clamp it as an assembly and do both sides at the same time. Alright, so that's clamped on there. Get that tacked. I've got a pair of pocket hole vice grips that are meant for holding pocket holes in wood stuff together. The one end is turned down to a smaller diameter, so I'm going to use that because that I think will fit right inside of that piece of square tube. Yep, and allow me to clamp it that way. Looks pretty straight and square. All right. Go cool that off again, touch it up with the flap disc and bolt her on. All right. So there it is. I was thinking about it last night, and if, because I thought about would this be in the way of smacking yourself in the head, but that's one, I guess, beauty of this being bolted on instead of welded on, is I can flip it around, and I could have the crank on the backside if I wanted to, if this gets to be in the way, and it's just a matter of pulling the pins out, flipping the straps to the opposite sides, and it'd be good to go do it at any rate. Three wheels that way, latches that way. Flip the latch over, and we can go either way. So, I think that turned out good. It spins pretty concentric as best I can tell. So, that's done. The rack is done, so I guess all that is left, I did check Amazon last night, and the pump is supposed to be here today. So I'll be able to check to see if whether like I mentioned, whether I want to do a rigid steel line to the outside and then do hose, or whether I'll do hose all the way. But I really don't have to wait for that to finish up, so I'm gonna look and see what I got for round bar left, and those will just tuck right in these, right in the very corners. I think I am going to I'm going to start out with just cut a piece, tack it or weld it in there. If for some reason there was too much friction or whatever, it wouldn't, where it's right on this corner, it'd be really easy to cut loose, and then I can always drill a hole and put an actual roller in there. But for now, I think it will be fine just gliding over a piece of round bar stock. So let me see what I got, get that cut and weld those in, and then it'll be a matter of, if I do sandblast, I think I'm getting pretty low on media. I'll have to run in and get some more sandblast media and then come back, we'll sandblast this, and I gotta be thinking about what color I want to paint it too, so be right back. Okay, so I had about a half a stick of some round bar, so I just cut two pieces of it off here. I made a mark in the center, so then what I'll do is when I put them up here, I'll just make sure that center is in alignment with that corner. Wherever that is, tack them in. That gives it good 1/2 or 5/8 of an inch above the thing, a nice angle on the straps for both, to line up with both. So I get those welded in, move you over here. Alrighty, that is a finished product. So as I mentioned, I will, all I got left to do is some deburring. That's not interesting viewing at all. So I'll do all that off the camera, knock off the rest of the burrs and soften any sharp edges, and then think about whether I am or am not going to sandblast it and what color I'm going to paint it, and bring you back. I don't know if that'll be in this episode. If it is, I'll be back here just in a blink of a camera frame. If it's not, and I've got enough content in this episode, then I appreciate you watching, and subscribing to my channel. Hopefully this content you find interesting. The next project is probably going to be the cornhole boards, I'm thinking. Because it's not nearly I want to do the gantry crane after that, and that's a lot more, going to be a lot more time consuming. So again, thanks for watching.